Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Random Episode. This is the podcast where we watch a random episode of a TV show from a random series that neither of us have watched before. I'm Varn.
And I'm Christy.
As always, thank you, Large Jesus, for that amazing intro song. Today is a special episode, folks.
Yes. So not only is this the 20th episode of our podcast, but to mark this special occasion, we decided to change it up a little bit today.
That's right. Now, many of you may think that we don't care about our listeners' comments and feedback, but we've been listening. We've had people emailing, texting, snail mailing us about the Rick and Morty episode. Mm-hmm. How, we just don't get it, how it's really funny, and how it's just the bee's knees, really.
So that's why today, this isn't just the random episode, it's the redemption episode.
Dun, dun, dun. Now, Christy and I have scoured the earth, and after a selection process that was much like Mortal Kombat, we have selected the best of the best to represent Team Rick and Morty. Now, they have selected an episode of Rick and Morty that they believe will redeem their beloved show and make us admit our sinning ways and convert to the church of Rick and Morty. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the podcast, Michelle and Craig.
Hello.
Hey there. Happy to be here.
Great to be here.
Really excited for you all to be here. This is going to be a blast.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to start off, Michelle, Craig, please tell us what makes you qualified to represent Team Rick and Morty.
Well, first off, I'll go. We watch a lot of TV. We are very much TV and content.
That qualifies us.
Yeah, I think that qualifies us.
I mean, that's why we do this podcast, so I think we're all qualified here.
But like a lot of TV. And during the pandemic, we watched, I think, all of Rick and Morty that was available. Every time a new season comes out, we rewatch the previous seasons leading up.
Wow.
I've read, there's, I think, a Hollywood Reporter article about the since rift of the co-founders, if you guys weren't aware.
No,
not
I don't
aware.
know
The
any of
co-creators
this.
is no longer involved with the project at all due to some sexual assault.
Okay.
Some
don't
very
condone
bad
that.
things.
We
But
don't
we
condone
do not,
it.
we absolutely do not condone
This isn't
Justin
making a great
Roiland's
case
behavior.
yet.
No,
So,
it's
yeah,
not. It's
I was
not.
going to say, you guys didn't research anything clearly because it was not mentioned. I was like,
Yeah.
ooh, there's a couple of things in the zeitgeist around Rick and Morty. But anyway, all of this, I would say, qualifies me to speak to Rick and Morty, hopefully. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan that knows all the things, but I'm interested in the show. I have watched a lot of the show, and I'm happy to talk to you about the show and its redeeming qualities, but also who it may and may not be for.
Yeah. No, it's well said, honey.
Oh, thank
That's well said. Yeah, Michelle is my wife, by the way. So that's how we know each other. Craig here, and really, I think what qualifies me, again, being on the couch next to Michelle, watching Rick and Morty season after season, definitely is one of the things. Me and adult cartoons go back a long way. I grew up watching The Simpsons and Family Guy, a lot of those adult cartoon shows, right? When you're a teenager sneaking up at night trying to see if you can get an episode in. You mentioned South Park. I've seen a lot of that before, and Adult Swim shows like Squidbillies or Aqua Teen Hunger Force and all that stuff. So I have a long history with this. So when Rick and Morty came up, I just was like, oh yeah, we got to watch this show. And during the pandemic, we watched it, loved every episode. And then there was a few times where should we just watch Rick and Morty again? We constantly revisit this show, and picking an episode was actually really challenging for us. And we watched probably 5, maybe 10 episodes before we settled on one.
Oh my gosh, they did so much prep work for
Yeah,
this
I'm
episode.
impressed.
Yeah, we take this podcast very seriously.
Thank God.
Love it. All right. I mean, you mentioned Squidbillies, Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Yeah.
They have gone way back with those. So how long have you gone way back with smoking weed? I'm joking. Don't answer that question. But no, that's great. I mean, I think that qualifies you both very much so to, represent Team Rick and Morty. Okay, so the episode that you all have chosen for us to watch tonight is Season 2, Episode 4, Total Rickall. This one aired August 16th, 2015 on Adult Swim. So, this is about 9 years old now, almost coming up on 10 years old for us. And yeah, so I'm just going to free ball this recap here.
You tell me what you think of this episode. Or
What was it about?
So the episode was about how, I guess, Rick and Morty went on an adventure someplace, or someone went on an adventure, and somehow inadvertently had brought back a parasite. And this parasite can take different forms and implant dreams and memories into everyone and every human in the room, which then somehow breeds more maybe parasites.
I'm following. Yes.
Yes, which all take on different forms and characters and just different imaginative people, and they figure out that who is fake is whoever in the room, whichever character, if they have a positive memory, if they don't have any negative memories with that character, then they must be a parasite. And upon realizing this, they go on a shooting spree, shoot 'em up everybody, up until the end, when the first person who we thought would be a parasite was a Mr. Let me check my notes here.
That's Mr. Poopy Butthole.
Poopy Butthole.
Mr.
Yes.
Poopy Butthole. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Poopy Butthole. He was the last one that they shot. That they, being Beth, shot him, and lo and behold, to the surprise of the family, well, maybe not the surprise of the family, but to the audience, Mr. Poopy Butthole was a real person.
Yeah.
Yes.
The whole time.
Very sad. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. He's a beloved character.
Yeah.
Is he a beloved?
Yeah,
he
he
comes
is
back.
actually. He does come back
He's
in other
recurring-
episodes, and it's great.
Yeah.
Mr. Poopy.
We get to know his life story.
Oh,
in the
wow.
series.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very long thread.
Yeah.
So, and then Mr. Poopy Butthole, in our end credit scene, we see they have visiting him in the hospital where he's doing physical therapy. Through a window, they're watching him, and he tells the nurse to let the family know that he is sorry that they only had positive memories with him, and that they loved
See,
him.
you're laughing.
They
You're like,
should just leave. Oh, I'm laughing because you all are laughing. I can't believe this shit. All right, so you kind of answered one of my first initial questions here. Let's dive right in. Mr. Poopy Butthole. Was he in Rick and Morty before this episode?
You go
No,
ahead. Yeah.
I don't think so.
No.
This was our first introduction to him.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Yes.
like Mr. Poopy Butthole was first introduced in this episode, right? And again, the whole foil is like, oh, he's definitely a fake character.
Yeah, his name is ridiculous. Of course he's fake.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
this contradicts
It's a
what
red
my
herring.
husband told me. So my husband also is a huge watcher of this show.
Yep.
And like a lot of the other things that you named. So when we watched for the podcast, I watched with him, and I don't know, maybe he just misremembered, but I was like, is this a recurring character? And he did confirm it is, but I guess maybe he didn't remember that this was its first introduction, which I guess makes a difference with the plot of this episode. Okay.
Yeah. I should go. Let me take a step back here. Did I miss anything in the summary of this plot? We can dive more into this.
No, I think you
That's it.
nailed it.
Lots.
Like 10 out of 10.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no, you got it.
Thank you. Okay. So my first question is, this is a Rick and Morty show question here, just in general. So do Rick ask them, one of them must have brought back something. So do members of the whole family go on adventures normally? Or is it always Rick and Morty and just, have one-off episodes? Because I think the one episode we saw, the sister...
Summer went with
them.
Yeah.
So is that usually how it is? Always Rick and Morty, and then they have one-off episods where family members join them? Or
Basically, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, yes and no. They do have, sorry, I had to clear my throat, but I apologize. Sorry, guys. Yes, they do have episodes with varying family members. So it might be a different one every time. It might be Rick and Morty. It might not. It might just be Jerry is on some of them. Obviously, Rick and Jerry clearly don't get along, as you noticed in this episode. So it really depends. But I did want to get into the background of the show, and I think this was a question that came up in the first pod that you did, was what is the premise of this show and was this based on? It is satire that is clearly based on Back to the Future. It is Doc and Marty
Doc Brown
McFly,
and
so it's
Marty.
Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait,
So-
is this like explicitly explained anywhere, or you just
No.
had to pick it up over time?
This was just an idea I think Justin Roiland had, one of the
Yeah.
creators, was like, oh, I kind of want to do a spoof on the like crazy scientist,
Yeah.
grandfather in this case, because in Back to the Future they're not related.
So-
and then they're like, we'll just make it that. But like just literally changing a letter, Marty to Morty.
Yeah.
And then just having ridiculous adventures.
Exactly, right? Like the basic premise is like Rick is that mad scientist and he's kind of subjecting his grandson to this, like his misadventures, and he's just like, you're gonna come with me on this, and like Rick is this nihilistic, like nothing matters, like you're gonna be along for the ride, and Morty's just this nervous teenage kid, right? But you see, the reason why it's like you guys watched that episode where Summer went on the adventure, it makes it kind of confusing, right? Because you're like, wait, I thought it was Rick and Morty, not Rick and Summer. But that's the whole like trope there, which is that like, Rick is like gonna just like throw anything at the wall, and then Morty's gonna be like, it's just like, oh, Rick, and that's why he's always like asking for weird adventures and sort of things like that. Yeah, so
That makes so much sense. Yeah, I think a lot of our confusion was like, why is this grandfather and grandson duo doing any of this? So
Yeah.
thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is one thing I'll say, and I think I brought this up probably in the original podcast, is if you listen to any of our podcast episodes, hate space. I hate anything that has to do with space. And so one of my problems with the first episode we watched is a lot of it is set in space. And I just I can't do that.
Right.
So I actually much more enjoyed this episode because it wasn't set in space. But I wasn't sure, are most of the episodes set in space? Would I hate every other episode because the rest of them are in space?
So we did a lot of research before we picked this.
You had to watch
episode.
a lot more
We had to
episodes.
watch a lot of episodes. Mileage does vary episode to episode because it's not just space. Because I don't know if you heard him when Rick was in the elevator. He said oh man, I forgot my portal gun. So the thing you saw him with, the portal gun. The portal gun is kind of like a MacGuffin in the sense of it will transport him through space. It will transport him into other dimensions.
Oh, all
Kinda
the things I
like-
hate.
Multiple
like-
realities and universes where there's
Kind of like
parallels of
Doctor
them.
Who.
Yeah, which I
So,
also-
if you're not,
like
yeah.
Which I also hated. So pretty much
Yeah.
all the places that they go are places that I would hate.
Right.
Okay, that's great to know. Okay.
Just like the TARDIS in Doctor Who,
God.
the portal gun is kind of the same comp, but that's also why we picked this episode, because all right, they're not going outside the house.
Thank you so
Yes.
much
Yeah,
we
for
heard
doing
your
Yeah.
feedback.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I
See?
listened.
They listen.
They're
Yeah.
really catering to, my needs. And I really appreciated that for you. Thank you so much. Because I will say, I don't know how Varn felt, but I really thought this was a good, funny episode, especially in comparison to the space one that we watched. And I don't know if it's solely because it wasn't in space or it was the storyline, but I found myself legitimately laughing a lot in this episode.
Well,
so good choice.
Back up the microphones, honey. Job's done.
Yes. Nailed it.
And that doesn't mean I'm going to laugh at all of the episodes, but you
Right.
did a great job choosing. You catered to your audience, me, something that I would enjoy. So I appreciate that.
Excellent.
Interesting.
But Varn, I don't know where you landed on this.
Oh, I laughed maybe twice
Varn,
this whole episode.
what was your problem?
man.
The problem was that it just wasn't funny. I just didn't.
Oh, he doesn't.
I
get
didn't
it.
find it funny. Yeah. I don't, what? You're now seeing Rick and Morty too, Christy?
I did not expect this to go this way.
Yeah, okay,
You
so-
thought it was gonna be Christy, didn't you? You thought you'd
Christy
get
is gonna
me.
hate this episode.
Well, here's the thing.
Like,
Here's the thing. At first, I'm like, this is so ridiculous. It is. It's so ridiculous, right? But once you realize, it was literally just all of them gaslighting each other. I'm currently really deep in the Traitors. I don't know if you're into the Traitors reality show,
heard it's
but
I've heard it's
it's
good.
basically bad guys gaslighting good people into convincing them that they're the bad guy. It literally was this. So I'm deep in the Traitors right now. This episode is fully just a round table of people gaslighting each other into believing who's the bad guys. So I was just fully bought in on the premise and the storyline of this episode. So that was what really got me.
I'm pumped to hear that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
So
I'm glad you
again,
picked the
I'm
right
not
thing.
saying that I now love Rick and Morty. I'm saying they chose a good episode for my current state of mind.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you have come to Rick and Morty Jesus.
Oh my, okay.
and
Well, y'all,
had
let's
your
again.
moment. It just, I think coming back to shows like South Park and Family Guy, there's still just a certain edge of like the satire hitting and the storylines hitting that was just missing there for me in this episode too. Like it just, yeah, I think the part that I laughed the most at.
What did you laugh the most at?
Laughed the most at, which was one of my questions, was with Sleepy Gary and Jerry.
Oh my god, that was
On the boat.
Funny.
That was
so
hilarious.
On the boat.
That was hilarious.
That was funny because as soon as you shot to a fake memory of them being on a boat together, shirts off, drinking.
You wanted to see that Star Wars film? They're filming up the
Exactly.
coast.
Yeah.
I knew exactly
Great.
where this was going, and I was really into it. It was exciting. It was funny. But
When he said, like, I told you, never in the house. That
yes,
that line.
that line was wonderful.
that part of the show, I think they just did a really good job. I don't know, like making it believable that what's the dad's name?
Jerry.
Yeah, that he like truly felt this like secret romance with the guy. Like it was, I don't know. I thought they did a really good job making it feel believable.
So, does Jerry's character usually have bi/homosexual
Good question.
tendencies throughout the show?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't know if there's like a
No.
recurring
He's
joke.
the butt of many jokes, generally. Like,
Well, is their marriage always terrible?
Yes.
yes.
Okay. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. You kind of got that with the flashback of Jerry being a coward and hiding in the car while Beth was like defending herself.
Attacked
That
by
was-
a homeless
that was
person
number
with
two.
a glass
That was number
bottle.
two.
Was that number
Number
two?
two. That's number two.
Excellent.
That's when I laughed. Yes.
Jerry, like Michelle
Yeah.
said, Jerry is the butt of the joke, right? Like, how would you describe Jerry?
Well, I mean, I feel like from the get-go, he loses his job like pretty much immediately. So he's unemployed for most of the season or the show. And I mean, even Rick says in this episode, he does like a jab at him when he comes
At the
in for
very
dinner,
beginning.
right? Like, well, I wish our grandkids didn't have your unemployed genes in them at him. So like, Jerry's just not very smart. And clearly in this episode, he thinks he's a parasite. He doesn't even know.
Yeah.
He's like, am I real? Like,
Yeah.
he's that level of
wonder-
intelligence.
Very
He's-
quickly he
crumbles.
buys in that
he crumbles.
he's
not
parasite.
brave. He's not
Yes.
smart.
And-
he's
No self-esteem
None
whatsoever.
at all.
And like the whole premise that you learn is that Jerry got, they kind of alluded to it in this episode. Jerry got pregnant with his wife. Oh God, I'm
Beth.
forgetting. Beth, yeah, with Beth early on, and had Summer, and that's kind of like Beth always questioning, like, oh, did I live my full life yet? That. So there's always that like tension there, and like that develops further in the show. No spoilers here on this podcast.
I mean,
but, like,
I'm not
Yeah.
gonna watch it. So you can
well,
spoil.
don't say
well,
never.
I guess
Don't say never.
I'm telling you, like, if you all could convince me to fully watch this, my husband would be eternally grateful because then I would like actually watch all of this with him. But I don't know. I mean, again, this episode I found funny.
Yeah.
Yep. And to Varen's point, we picked an episode that actually doesn't have any story arc through the season. Like this episode has
like standalone?
it's a standalone.
Okay.
Yeah.
It has no impact on, there's other main arcs that,
Yeah.
like there's my favorite episode I really wanted to pick. I have a feeling Varen would like it, but you would need to know more about the show. And there's like payoff
Yeah.
with certain characters.
Okay.
And it also gets into the multiverse, which based on your previous feedback, we were like, this isn't gonna be
No.
it.
Not
We're
good.
not
Not
gonna
for
pick that
Chrissy.
one.
Not
yeah.
for
And then
So it's like, I'm with you. Like, not every episode do I love also.
Okay.
Because it is, there's a quote Craig found, like, it's a lot of 12-year-old boy humor
Well,
at points.
yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, it's fine, But then some episodes, there's just really great writing, great music even
Yeah.
at points, and just like good storytelling. But it can be kind of hit or miss if you're going on that journey.
Well, I think, can we bring up the like male versus female of it all? Like, I feel like this is a very male targeted show, but I know like you obviously watch it. Like, I know other women who watch it. So, like, do you like, I don't know, like, does it bother you at all
I
when
like
it's
absurdist humor.
Okay.
And so I've watched a lot of like Seinfeld growing up. We've watched Arrested Development. Community. Have either of you watched
Oh
Community?
yeah, both of those shows I love.
Okay,
Yeah.
Dan Harmon, one of the creators, is behind Community. So like
Okay.
taking things as far as you can go, like taking a premise
Yeah.
we know and are familiar with,
Yeah.
which is a lot of what Rick and Morty does, and then just seeing how far can we push it. Like I enjoy that type of humor. Some of this is, yes, grossly violent, grossly disgusting.
It's
like
gross.
it can lean and like it dials up and down some of those areas. So I like don't love all of it necessarily, but
Okay.
sometimes it's worth it because the payoff
Okay.
is really good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like, I was introduced to the show because my buddy came over and my neighbor walked down the stairs with a Rick and Morty shirt on and was like, "That show is awesome. That show rocks." Now, granted, this was one white dude talking to another white dude. So being the third white dude, I'm like, "Oh, I should check out this show right here."
Seems like something I might like.
I'd like
Gotta
that,
complete the
you know?
trifecta.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
So is there anything else you wanted to say about the episode?
I mean, I will just say again, I said that I laughed. I will admit, the last probably like 2 minutes, I was crying laughing. Like I genuinely was crying laughing when
What
they
got you?
shot. So when she shot Mr. Poopy Butthole, and then when whatever his name is calls 911 and is like, our longtime family friend was just shot. Like so funny. And then like I was already crying, like laughing. And then they go to the scene of him in the physical therapy, like doing the like rehab. And I was just like, this is the most insane thing. It was just like so insane. I think you're like getting at it, like the absurdist stuff. Like I also like love Arrested Development, like things that are just like so absurd.
Yeah.
And that I think for me was just like so funny. Just I was laughing. Even we turned it off and I was still like crying laughing. So
So I have a quick question for you all. Who was your favorite imaginary character?
Ooh, that's a good
I asked this of
question.
Michelle last night, so I want to hear you all first. Okay, I know Varn, you're not a big fan of, you weren't laughing too much, but who did you like?
I'm going to refer to Chrissy to go first. I gotta think about this one.
okay, and because my husband also asked me right after like what I thought. I just loved the name Pencilvester.
100%.
I just like loved him so much. I was dying. And then I also really liked the Summer's like imaginary friend.
Oh,
that
yeah.
whole
Twinkles,
scene, Twinkles
I
or whatever,
think,
was
yeah.
so funny to me.
Where the
but-
rap breakdown in the middle
Oh
of it
my
was
god,
really
it was
funny.
just like the most, again, like so absurd, but also kind of funny. It was kind of like I watch Big Mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of
Oh, yeah.
like this type of stuff that they do. So I guess that's why I liked it. But yeah, Pencilvester, just can't with his name.
Yeah.
I think my favorite, they didn't even have a line, I think was the raptor who was a photographer.
Oh,
Yeah, photography raptor. It had a name.
It just-
It was
sorry.
photography raptor.
Thank you. I don't think he had any speaking lines either, but it was just a really funny image to
Yeah.
have and I think that was like the second or third
Yeah.
Yeah.
imaginary character got introduced, and I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
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 What about you all? What do you?
I liked Mr. Beauregard, the butler.
Oh, the butler.
I really enjoyed the like emotional moment when Morty's like, I don't want to go to the dance alone, and then Mr. Beauregard comes out in a dress and is like, you don't have to, and it was like, oh, kind of like a Mrs. Doubtfire
Yeah,
moment.
yeah.
I was like, this is so ridiculous. I love it.
It was a tie for me. I go back and forth, but definitely Pencilvester, Christy. I think Pencilvester was just like the cutest, and just like that moment.
But
where
my name's Pencilvester.
Rick is like, come on, man. Wasn't there like an awkward silence or a fart that lingered too long? Like, that was a good one. But then also Reverse Giraffe, Keith David.
Oh, yes,
as,
Reverse Giraffe.
Reverse
Reverse
Giraffe. Like in his voice, he comes back later as the president. I think it's Keith. Is it
Yeah,
Keith
I think it's
David?
Keith David,
Yeah,
the actor.
he comes back later as the president. Great voice actor. Yeah, and just the whole idea of a reverse giraffe just is absolutely
I
ridiculous.
forgot about that one. I loved that one as
Yeah,
well.
right.
And this is the thing, like you could just see the creativity is so vivid, right? Like who comes up with this shit? Like I can't even like imagine coming up with half of these characters. So
100%.
it definitely, again, like I can see the craftsmanship, right, that goes into like that takes a lot of creative thought. So I can appreciate that. Even if, again, this isn't my favorite show, I'm not becoming a convert. I do appreciate, what goes into it. They did a great job.
As you both know, if you've listened to the podcast, we do have a rock rating, representation of color. So let's talk about that in this episode, shall we? I think I saw one Japanese person who was a samurai.
It was a ham
Samurai.
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 Samurai,
Yes.
yes. I saw
And then
one.
Amish cyborg, does that
Well,
count?
Amish is not a
No,
race.
it's not a race,
like,
my bad.
no.
I saw in the background one black person who I think was a Harlem Globetrotter
Okay.
type
Yes.
character.
Okay.
But
Saw that
not much else going on there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and we're not counting the voice actors, right? Because
No, not kind of the
all
voice
right, well,
actors
then
here.
we're
I'm
just-
afraid. Yes, I know. Yes,
Yeah,
Reverse Giraffe was a.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
but is this normal? Again, one of things that I had problems with this show was again, I think this was a show by white dudes
Yeah.
for white dudes. In the show's episodes you've seen, it sounds like you watched the whole series. Are there any really main recurring characters that are POCs?
There's the teacher, the teacher. He
Morty's
is
like math teacher.
Morty's math teacher. He's a recurring side character.
Yes.
Generally, no, I won't say that this is not where you're going to find representation in cartoon form. But aliens are people too.
I was going to say there's also not a ton of other humans on the show.
Right.
So like we've basically met them all. Like you've already basically met them all. There's like a few side characters at Morty's high school, like Jessica, his love interest. And that's like pretty much it for
Right.
humans.
Yeah.
Then we spend a lot of time off planet in other universes with aliens. So
Right.
Yeah.
that
Do the aliens ever look human-like?
Well, the one that we
guess
saw,
those
there
do
was
you think
the
bird person is kind of human?
Yeah, because he's part person and part bird.
He's like
right?
a bird.
Does it
robot
seem like
person?
they have a race, or it's like they're green? Like, what do aliens look like?
Well, yeah.
And then there's the robot guy who's
the
just
robot
gears.
guy, gear guy,
yeah.
Gearhead, yeah, that's his name, right?
They're like human-like, I guess, in that
yeah.
they speak the same language.
Yeah,
I guess they
there's-
all speak English.
There's more aliens than there are humans in the
Okay.
show, like aliens and interdimensional beings and all that stuff. So yeah, so again, if you count that, we're flying colors on the rock rating, right?
And in the
Yeah.
Marvel-like episode, there was
Yes.
Alan Rails, was a
Alan,
black man.
that's right, yeah, Alan Rails.
He's a ghost-trained superhero.
Conductor.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, conductor,
Again,
pardon,
that was one
conductor.
in contention, but
Yeah,
it didn't.
It was also very violent. So
Yeah, exactly. So
this
yeah.
was honestly the least violent one we could probably
Yes.
find for
Okay.
you
Correct.
guys.
Oh, wow.
We were very mindful.
Interesting.
Yeah.
There, yeah.
It only gets more from here,
and-
just FYI.
The show is very dark in its humor too.
Yes.
So we actually had this one episode where we thought we were going to do, but it got too dark. It got too dark, and very much like in your scene, like again the whole like the forced sexual encounter is the part of it. Yeah. Like
I was like,
there
we
was
can
some
get into the dark stuff now.
there was
Yeah.
we can get into
Can
it.
you
into the
say
dark stuff.
more? Like, when you say
Yeah.
dark, what do you mean?
So
what
I
happens?
guess starting with the creators of the show, it's Justin Roiland who had this idea of, Marty McFly and his grandfather, but like reimagined in an adult humor type of way. And Dan Harmon, who was like showrunner of Community, also loves absurdist humor and had his own ideas. They were the team, they were like the dream team essentially the first 2 seasons. And Justin does almost all the voices. He is Rick, he is Morty, and he is a lot of the side characters. So he's a very talented voice actor. He's just a really shitty person.
Yeah,
Really sucks.
not a cool guy.
Oh my God.
Wait,
I
so
know.
he's the
Really
one who
unfortunate.
who
so
left?
he had some sexual assault allegations. He was
And-
also creating a very toxic work environment
Shocking.
for the poor women writers on the show.
Were there actually women writers?
Correct.
I believe so, yeah.
Oh,
and
wow,
then
okay.
he had differences with Dan Harmon, who was bringing in other writers to have a more professional environment that Justin was not really feeling, and it was again he was honestly contributing to a very toxic workplace culture.
Yeah.
So he has since stopped. He is no longer voicing any of the characters in the new season.
So
they
they
got
ju-
a new
they
voice
still have
actor,
new
and he is
voices?
no longer creatively attached to the project at all. They found a new one to do Rick and Morty's voice. Yeah.
Have you noticed a difference?
A little bit.
Like not too
A
much.
little bit.
though. Like,
But the
there's-
reason also Rick is always burping is because he's an alcoholic.
Yeah.
So he's got stuff on his mouth. It's meant to convey that he's an alcoholic.
Like,
he's not sober.
The
a lot.
character.
The character,
Correct.
his
Oh, okay.
grandfather. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So he talks and he burps while he talks a lot. That's his like signature.
I wondered
the
if
top burp.
the burping was just supposed to be like a funny like bathroom humor type
No.
No,
thing.
it's a sign that he's not well mentally.
Yeah, like and Michelle did a great job describing that. But basically, like, you know, it was kind of like one of those things where like Justin Roiland was there for the first season. They made the pilot season, and then Dan Harmon was like, oh, let me bring in like a real writer's room, right? And then he just kind of got more disinterested, but he kept doing the voices and. There was articles that was like he just kind of stopped showing up to the writers' room, so like he just was that, and since like you said, like, but Dan Harmon is really like kind of like putting the absurdist brains behind all those different things, and like again, if you went on, there's like some episodes that like again allusions to Training Day. There's one episode if you're a big fan of the Hellraiser series.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's a great episode where they riff on and satirize Hellraiser, but.
Wait, is Hellraiser the bald dude with the needles?
The pinhead, yeah.
Hell no.
Yeah.
Okay. Pass.
But
I have nightmares about that shit.
I would also say, keeping that in mind, looking back, like I'm glad you said that this episode aired in 2014, 2015, like almost 10 years ago. It's like, wow, that's crazy. But looking back on some of the episodes and now rewatching them, that it's been that long. And when we were picking ones to share for you guys to enjoy, there was one that we really liked because the main, like the A plot was great, but then the B plot, it was like, this is a little rapey, and that doesn't age well.
No.
And it's like, ooh, some of these things, like as a woman, I'm like, yeah, don't love that at all.
And it's
like,
in there
have
like
not aged great.
And it's to be funny, or is it trying to like make a political statement?
No,
they're just trying to be funny.
No,
It's
it's not trying to
dark
make a
humor,
statement.
but
It's just dark humor.
Okay.
And it just, these are 20-minute episodes. They can't get that deep, to make any statements. They're just like throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing what laughs. And some of it, you're like, that doesn't look good. So, it's just like, that didn't age well.
Yeah.
For some of it. So, yeah, I mean, time has passed. We only can look at these things, 2020. But
And have you noticed a change in like the tone or anything since the leadership has changed,
or quality too,
or like anything?
Well, I would say like that first season is like when we went to rewatch it, it's kind of rough to watch too because it can be like very like it's very like in your face and like not as sophisticated in terms of writing and jokes and all that stuff. And then the later seasons, like the satire is just like, wow, I can't, like you said, I can't believe they could think of things like that, right?
Yeah.
That you get a lot more like nuances, and again, they play on all these weird ideas around nihilism, right? So like I have a quote here. Dan Harmon described Rick and Morty as a never-ending fart joke wrapped around a studied look into nihilism. Like that
sounds accurate.
That is basically what the show is. And I'm like, yep, that's it right there, So they just do a better job of like, they're not trying to do dark humor in terms of like sexual encounters and all that stuff. They're trying to do more dark humor around just like, what is life? What is existence? Like what does it mean to just like be in a world of infinite worlds, so basically nothing matters, right? So,
And for the audience, it might be a little bit of like shock value too.
Yeah.
Because again, they're asking that question like, how far can we push it? Sometimes you can push it too far.
Yep.
Okay.
And I think that's part of this, what we enjoy about doing this podcast too, is again, we are selecting shows that have aired, again, 30, 40 years ago, and ones that have aired recently, but again, being able to see what has aged well and what has not aged well is, kind of what we enjoy about doing.
And we've talked about that with like we love The Office, right? Like there are some things in The Office that have not aged well as much as we still love the series. So
The Office is perfect. What are you talking about? Everything's aged like a fine wine.
Or like Friends too.
Oh, yeah, Friends.
Friends has a lot of like, I know you like Gen X representation here, like, but yeah, like that doesn't age well great. So
so we definitely get that. And this show's only 10 years old. So.
Yeah, right.
Well, things were still problematic 10 years ago, but like that's fine.
But that being said, I could definitely curate some more episodes for you all to laugh at. It just might take a little while, maybe another rewatch or so.
I have a lot on my content plate right now.
Currently doing a rewatch of The Office. I mean, those are kind of all the questions I had, really.
Yeah, I mean, you all have given us a lot to think about, which I really appreciate. It honestly is really helpful to hear just kind of like the backstory, how things have changed over time. And I, again, appreciate the choice of a non-space themed episode because it gave me a chance to actually enjoy it.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Varun, I'm sorry it wasn't your redemption, but it seems like
I know.
Redemption.
Yeah.
I like that. I
Thank
like
you.
that.
But
Coin that
we
one.
tried.
Well, honestly, I am going to ask for the training day one.
Yes.
Because
It's the top rated, like number 1 rated episode.
The Atlantis
I don't think that's the
mix-up.
one that won an Emmy. I think it was a different one.
Yeah.
But an episode like this, I think season 3 did win an Emmy. So like the show does have good writing and good storytelling. Sometimes. It's not all fart jokes. Or fart.
and then the opener, like the season 2 opener where Rick escapes from prison. That's also another good one too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you see, again, there's
Yeah.
too many good ones. So.
well, we'll see it step by step here. Okay, you send me the training day ones. That really piqued my interest. Loved the movie Training Day.
Of course.
Like many millennials out there, just the best.
Well, can I ask them one more question?
Of course.
So you did name a couple shows that I like. We like Arrested Development, Community.
Okay.
What are other shows that you all like love, feel very passionate about? Because maybe I don't know. Maybe some of them are ones we haven't seen.
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot
Oh,
here.
I did not prepare them
like
for this question.
humor, like comedy
I mean,
shows?
anything. Like, what are you all into?
Have you watched What We Do in the Shadows?
What is? I don't know what that is.
Okay.
Oh.
I've tried
You?
it. Wife producer likes it a lot more than I do.
What kind of show is it?
It's a comedy.
Comedy about
It's a comedy.
vampires.
Comedy
About vampires.
Yeah, well, that's why I was surprised I didn't make the vampire cut of the episode. That's a good one. I was thinking, actually, have you ever seen? Well, I know you don't like space, so Battlestar Galactica is.
Okay, I've actually watched that entire series.
What?
This is y'all.
Yeah,
Y'all, listen.
right.
This is the
Listen.
biggest
Only
shock
set
of
in
the night.
space.
This is the problem.
am-
This is my problem in my life. No, it's
sure
it's
right
not a problem. My husband is wonderful. I love him. My husband is like y'all, like loves
Okay.
this type of show, space, like. And because I love him, I watch a lot of shows with
Okay.
him, and he'll convince me to watch. So, I have watched the entire series of Battlestar Galactica.
This is
I know.
unbelievable.
Marriage,
Did I-
guys.
Wow.
Marriage.
Because
Making
marriage.
sacrifices every
And
day.
I will admit, it was good. Like
pretty
it
good,
was
yeah.
well done as a series, and it's okay that it was about space.
All right.
I forgive it.
Wow.
It was about the friends we made along the way.
Yeah, it was about more than just space, so it's fine.
I'm trying to go back in the catalog of recommendations.
And I guess also, like, what are you watching right now?
Yeah, what are you watching?
We just got finished with Arcane,
Yes.
Okay. I
don't know what
we
that
just
is.
finished
and
Arcane. It is an animated show,
animated
so I don't
show.
know that you'll
Also
love it,
not my
but it is
vibe.
arguably the best animated show I've
It
ever
is.
seen in my life.
I've been meaning to go and watch that.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
if you like
It's really good. Karin.
complicated female characters, like everyone
Strong
has
female characters.
Like,
okay.
and strong, like
Yep.
in depth, like and like very every character has their own plot, like and just like fulfilling storyline and arc and all
Yes.
that. Just can't
With
recommend
beautiful animation that is done in 2D and 3D. We just also watched the docu-series about the making of,
Yeah.
because it took like 6 to 7 years to get it into production.
Oh my god.
So we watched the docu-series about it. I was like, oh my, because it's so fantastic, and you're like, oh, it's because they put a lot of time and energy and love into creating a really good TV show, and
And-
it's just stellar.
It's based on a video game. I've never played the video game whatsoever, so that does not matter.
All right, I
So-
gotta ask my husband about this one.
Yeah,
I bet he'd be into it.
And then, maybe for the pod, maybe just an episode of like Star Trek: The Next Generation or something like that, or Voyager.
Well, we just started watching Shrinking.
Yes, we did just
a
watch
comedy.
it. Yeah.
Is that a comedy?
That's a
I
comedy.
believe so.
Is that the one with Harrison Ford?
It is, yeah.
Yeah,
And Jason Segel.
Segel,
Yes.
yes.
Oh, I feel like I heard about this. Okay.
Yeah, we're only a
Let's
couple
check it out.
episodes in. So
Yep.
far, so good.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I would say.
Great. Thanks. We always appreciate hearing some show recs.
Absolutely.
Exactly. All right, great. Well, anything else from anyone?
No, I was just happy to be here. Thanks for having me on the pod.
I was gonna say my catchphrase, which is,
Oh, yeah.
and that's the way the news goes.
That's the way the news goes. Wubba dubba dub dub. Till we come next time.
Okay,
Thanks for the
Michelle.
time.
Okay,
I'm never getting
Cut
invited
Michelle's mic. All right, well, thanks for listening, everyone. Remember to follow us on Spotify or wherever you're listening. And if you like what you hear, please rate us 5 stars. Also, make sure to follow us on Instagram at The Random Episode Pod. Also, Michelle, Craig, do you have any social media you want to plug?
You can follow me on Threads.
Ooh.
Yeah, you can follow me there. I think it's C Dykstra 88. Yeah, you can follow me there. That's cool. And I'll follow you back. That's fine. So
I'm not on social media really. I
Good for
don't
you.
post a lot. I'm a lurker.
yeah,
Fair enough.
I'll find
Yeah.
you. You don't find me.
Yeah,
I love that energy.
Well, finally, and most importantly, come back next week for our next random episode.
Bye.